Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirms commitment to Trump's plan for Gaza, involving the displacement of over 2 million Palestinians. Qatari Ministry of Foreign Affairs expresses deep concern over Israeli airstrikes on southern Lebanon. European leaders gather in France for emergency summit on Ukraine after Trump administration announces talks with Russia without European involvement. It's exactly 8 p.m. Car local time and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Far-right Israeli Settlements and National Missions Minister Orit Struk has threatened that she will quit her job if the war stops. Struk said such a scenario would mean Israel gives up on subduing and destroying Hamas, and Israel would crash into a major disaster. Struk added that the terrible mistake Netanyahu made will have terrible consequences in people's lives because of the strengthening of Hamas. Such calls have been echoed by other far-right members of the Israeli government, including Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that he is committed to Trump's plan for Gaza, which involves displacing more than 2 million inhabitants of Palestinian territory. Netanyahu said in a statement, just as he has committed to, on the day after the war in Gaza, there will be neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. He added that he commits to U.S. President Donald Trump's plan for the creation of a different Gaza. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has met with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Riyadh. Rubio had earlier met with his Saudi counterpart, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, at the Saudi Foreign Ministry's headquarters in Riyadh. Rubio and Prince Faisal discussed bilateral relations and exchanged views on regional and international developments. The United States officials' trip to Riyadh coincides with the city hosting U.S.-Russia talks on Ukraine. And now we move on to the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين. وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
The Qatari Ministry of Foreign Affairs has expressed deep condemnation over Israeli airstrike on southern Lebanon. The ministry also called on all parties to strictly adhere to the ceasefire agreement after the Israeli military launched a drone strike in Lebanon's Sidon. The ministry also reiterated the state's firm supportive decision towards Lebanon, its unity and territorial integrity, stressing the need for the withdrawal of Israeli occupation forces from all Lebanese authorities. Lebanon has extended the suspension of flights to and from Iran. The Lebanese presidency stated this following a cabinet meeting without clarifying the extension period. Lebanon halted an Iranian flight to Beirut last week after the Israeli military accused Tehran of using civilian aircraft to smuggle cash to Beirut to arm the Lebanese group Hezbollah. In response, Iran said it would not allow Lebanese flights to land until its flights were cleared to land in Beirut. And for more analysis, we now move on to the newsroom to Riham Morsi. Welcome back, Riham.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back. We start with further analysis where we're joined from Beirut by Brigadier General Halal, military affairs expert. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q. Firstly, let me start off by asking you, do you think Israel will withdraw from Lebanese territories tomorrow, or will they not do that?
Greetings to your kind Qnews. Certainly, the Israeli enemy will withdraw amid the assertion of the five-member committee headed by the American general of the Central Commandership that affirmed Israel will withdraw from the villages but didn't mention if they are going to withdraw from the fifth zone governed by them, that the Israeli enemy will be present. But in general, they will execute tomorrow at 9 a.m. outside the populated villages.
So, sir, how will Lebanon react to the 5 military points that Israel has established in Lebanese territory and will continue to deploy in it?
You asked me about the Lebanese reaction.
Yes.
نعم سيدي. No.
Sir, I'm not sure if you grasped the question, but I mean, I'm asking you about the Lebanese reaction when it comes to the 5 military points that Israel established in Lebanese territories and seems to continue and will continue to deploy in it as well.
Understood. The Israeli enemy will remain in the fifth point determined by them. That meaning that they are staying in the Lebanese territory and never withdraw completely and nor committed to the resolution 1701. So the Lebanese government today announced in its first session, presided by the President of the Republic,
Yes.
Through among these proclaimed points, so
Okay.
the position is going to be a national stand by the Lebanese state as they committed with the international sponsors in this matter, and there will be some sort of legitimacy for the resistance in this time.
Yes, well, sir, this kind of brings in the next idea of, Israel violating the ceasefire agreement several times by, attacking certain areas in Lebanon. How do you view these strikes, and what will the international community do to uphold the ceasefire agreement?
Practically, halting the military attacks stipulated the resolution 1701 sponsored by the international community that support Israel, and it is not odd for the international community, regardless of such violations made by the Israeli enemy, since the ceasefire agreement into effect. Since that date, the Israeli enemy violated the ceasefire despite the full commitment by the Lebanese authority. I think what is the Israeli enemy is doing, as they, even if they withdraw tomorrow and wishes to continue the mobility within this point based on a paper of guarantees made by the representative Morgan Irtiparis, as saying that she thanks Israel that they confronted Lebanon and the resistance, and therefore they are what they acclaimed by doing, launching a battle among the wars, so targeting for defense, and they are the governor and they are the party that is doing so.
So, sir, my final question here is, what does the Lebanese army need in order to enhance security and stability in the areas from which Israel has already withdrawn?
Practically, the Israeli enemy wants us to stay in such a moment, proclaiming that their presence affects the settlers emotionally, as they wish to return back, so they have some sort of a political dimension to pressure the Lebanese government in order to execute as the interpretation for the resolution 1701 by claiming that they want to disarm the Hezbollah arm. But the Lebanese army, what is regarding the 1701 in the southern of the Litani River, but in the north it is an internal matter and will be amended the national defense strategies. The Lebanese army is in need to execute this matter, to have a full control and to undergo what are demanded from, such as a defensive capabilities to fulfill the national strategy. And also they are in need for a political resolution in order to execute such a defensive strategy.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. From Beirut, that was Brigadier General Bahet Halel, military affairs expert. Thank you for joining us here on Qnews. And now back to you, Rana, in the studio.
Thank you very much, Riham. And we move on to Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, who has stated that Israel cannot be trusted and expressed concerns over the possibility of a complete Israeli withdrawal on Tuesday. Aoun stressed that Lebanon's response would come through a unified national stance. He emphasized that war is not viable and that diplomatic channels would be pursued, as Lebanon cannot endure another war. He also confirmed that the Lebanese army is prepared to deploy in villages and towns from which Israeli forces has withdrawn. The Israeli military has stated that it will maintain forces in 5 locations in southern Lebanon after the deadline for its full withdrawal passes on Tuesday. The announcement raised fears of a resurgence in violence in southern Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah. In late January, mediators announced a 3-week extension to the agreement, giving Israel more time to complete its withdrawal. Lebanese officials have demanded Israel's full withdrawal by February 18th, after Israeli forces missed an earlier January deadline. Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has visited the National Anti-Corruption Commission at its headquarters in Verdun. Salem held a meeting with the Commission's President, Judge Claude Karam, and met with its members. Salem also presented his financial disclosure and interest statement upon assuming his duties as Prime Minister. Egyptian Ambassador Alaa Moussa has affirmed that the coming period will witness financial reforms in Lebanon. Following a meeting between the Quintet Committee and Prime Minister Nawaf Salem, Moussa reiterated the group's commitment to supporting Lebanon in all sectors. He condemned the ongoing Israeli attacks on Lebanon, citing their impact on reconstruction costs and their violation of Lebanese sovereignty. European leaders have gathered in France for an emergency summit on Ukraine after the Trump administration announced it was opening talks with Russia on ending the conflict without a European presence. In recent days, US President Donald Trump and his top officials have upended that had largely been a unity front between Washington and its European NATO allies on supporting Ukraine against Russia, which is nearing its third anniversary. Trump's posture towards Russian President Vladimir Putin and comments from United States officials on Ukraine and NATO has raised anxieties in Europe that Washington's vision for a swift end to the war would allow for key concessions to Russia. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares has stated that it is too early to discuss troop deployments to Ukraine. He added that Spain poured cold water on a British proposal to send peacekeepers to Ukraine. Speaking ahead of an emergency summit of European leaders on Ukraine's three-year war with Russia, Albares told reporters negotiations to end the conflict should not end up rewarding Russian aggression. Albares said he expects European unity and a commitment to establishing peace in Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has stated that he wants to see a strong and sovereign Europe. Scholz joins the leaders of France, Britain, Denmark, Poland, Italy, Spain and the Netherlands, as well as top officials from NATO and the European Union, to discuss changes to the US approach to Ukraine and risks to European security. Addressing the question of whether German troops could be deployed for a possible future peace mission in Ukraine, Scholz stressed the importance of a strong Ukrainian army. Hungary has welcomed the start of high-level talks between Russia and the United States. Speaking after a meeting with his counterpart in Kazakhstan, Foreign Minister called for European leaders who were expected to meet in Paris later today pro-war, saying they wanted to prevent a deal on peace on Ukraine. He said those who were gathering in Paris today, who have been continuously collecting and pouring oil onto the fire in the last 3 years. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has reiterated that Poland will not send troops to Ukraine. Tusk told reporters that Poland would continue to support Ukraine with humanitarian and military aid. He also warned against questioning Europe's alliance with the United States after a week that has left many countries fearing they cannot count on support from Washington, and that US President Donald Trump will do a Ukraine peace deal with Russian President Vladimir Putin that undermines Kyiv and broader European security. We now move on to the latest developments in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Keith Kellogg, U.S. President Donald Trump Ukraine envoy, has stated that no one will impose a peace deal on Ukrainian President Zelensky. Kellogg added that he and the people of Ukraine would make the call. He said a trip to Ukraine is still being finalized and said that he would meet with Zelensky.
We had no wars, we didn't have problems. Now we got the whole world is blowing up.
Ukrainian President Zelensky has said that Kyiv was not informed of upcoming talks between Russia and the United States, adding that Ukraine would not recognize agreements made without its participation. Zelensky said that Kyiv did not know anything about the talks this week, adding in comments carried by the Interfax Ukraine news agency that the country cannot recognize any things or any agreements about us without us, and he will not recognize such agreements. Ukrainian President Zelensky has said he had discussed bringing back Ukrainians from Russian captivity with United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan at a meeting in Abu Dhabi. The United Arab Emirates has played a key role in overseeing the return of Ukrainians deported to Russia during the nearly 3-year-old war, many of them children. Zelensky has said earlier that the top priority for his visit was to ensure that still more Ukrainians can return home from captivity. During the meeting, Sheikh Mohammed reaffirmed the United Arab Emirates' commitment to support a peaceful resolution to the Ukraine conflict and initiatives to ease its humanitarian impact. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he believes he could meet very soon with Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. Speaking to reporters, Trump said he was working hard to achieve peace and said that he believes both Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky want to stop fighting. His comments come as the United States and Russia are preparing for initial talks in Saudi Arabia in the coming days.
Napoleon, they've been fighting a long time. They've done it before, but I think he'd like to.
Ukrainian soldiers in Kharkiv, a region, have continued working round the clock to fortify defensive against any possible Russian advances. Soldiers of 211th Brigade are stationed at an undisclosed location in northern Kharkiv region, stretch coils of razor wire across the snow-laden fields. Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, lies on mere 30 kilometers from the Russian border. Moving on to the world of economics, where the global shares in the world witnessed a mixed performance during Monday's trading. Futures for the S&P 500 inched down 0.01%, and futures for the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 0.37%. In Europe, France's CAC 40 was up to 0.24%. Germany's DAX increased 1.25%. Britain's FTSE 100 gained 0.33%. In Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dipped 0.02%, while the Shanghai Composite was up 0.27%. The Nikkei 225 rose 0.6%. The S&P and ASX 200 in Australia was down 0.22%. Moving on to oil prices, were broadly steady on Monday as investors monitored developments over a possible Russia-Ukraine peace deal that could ease the sanctions that have disrupted energy flows, while a weaker dollar and reduced Caspian supply curbed any selling. Brent crude futures edged up to $74.86 a barrel, and U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude rose to $70.94 a barrel. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we have been covering. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirms commitment to Trump's plan for Gaza, involving the displacement of over 2 million Palestinians. Qatari Ministry of Foreign Affairs expresses deep concern over Israeli airstrike on southern Lebanon. European leaders gather in France for emergency summit on Ukraine after the Trump administration announces talks with Russia without European involvement. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow us on Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Qnews Egypt to stay informed. Thank you very much for watching, and for today, this ends our transmission. Thank you very much for watching. See you tomorrow.